God. Well, we're working on learning how to trust God. It's easy again to say we are, but much more difficult to actually do it. Again, going back to our last chapter, 11 things, well, I think it was 7 that were in our books, and I added 4 more kind of objectives or benefits I think that we gain because of trials. And again, it's not always easy to remind ourselves that when I'm facing something that's not comfortable, then I'm facing something that's not fun, easy, convenient, that God is in control, and I need to trust Him, and there's actually gain for this. It doesn't necessarily mean that I will be healthy and wealthy, but it means that whatever the trial is, that God is going to use it in relation to my heart, to my character, to who I am. And ultimately that's what those 11 points are in regards to knowing the objectives of adversity. Then we need to make the decision to trust. Not just talk about it, but choosing to trust Him. We looked at Psalm 42. A Psalm of David, a lot of distractions that he had, the very reality of waiting, and then that contagious aspect, the contagion. We looked at a couple weeks ago, Psalm 56, just 2 points, knowing our limits. Again, from David, Psalm 56, but in reference to 1 Samuel 21. David looked around at his surroundings and didn't see anything that would normally be encouraging for us. For a man would swallow me up, or literally his words there had that idea of a foaming at the mouth wild animal ready to destroy and devour. But to know that our limits. This isn't about David grabbing, as he did, the sword of Goliath, thinking that because he had the sword, he was able to conquer it, but the very reality of he needed God. He knew that God was limitless. And Psalm 56:3 again, if I am afraid, I will trust in Him, and be reminded of that. I will trust in my God. Last week, choosing to trust God requires faith. Again, the Holy Spirit that's involved in that aspect of faith requires a willingness on our part, a desire, well, I don't know a better word than willingness. A lot of times I think that in multiple needs, it's often challenging. It's humbling, we'll say it that way. It's humbling to receive help. And even when it comes from our God, we have to be willing to be helped. But we also have to realize our responsibility that's involved as well. Psalm 34:4. That idea of salt. Remember the illustration of our time with our God, wearing out the path, treading back and forth. This week, we're going to look at and again, these aren't from the book, the title there, but just kind of my summary of the next page or so. To affirm what it is that we believe. Again, I can say I'm going to trust God. When the rubber hits the road, when the trials hit my face, so to speak, there's a choice that I need to make that I will trust God. It's easy to trust God after the trial. It's easy to trust God before the trial, but we need to make a decision. We need to make a choice during the trial that we won't stop trusting Him, that He is a trustworthy God, and this will work out. Well, along those lines, there are some things that we need to affirm in our minds, and I call it an affirmation. I found a website that was quite, I'm not even saying to use the word interesting. It was actually quite terrifying in regards to the word affirmation. In fact, I give you the website not because I encourage you to go there, but because I'm going to be quoting from it. It's mindtools.com. And let me read some quotes from mindtools.com. Affirmations are positive statements that can help you to challenge and to overcome self-sabotaging and negative thoughts. When you repeat them often and believe in them, you can start to make positive changes. You might consider affirmations to be unrealistic, quote, wishful thinking, but try looking at positive affirmations this way. Many of us do repetitious exercises to improve our physical health, and affirmations are like exercises of our mind and outlook. These positive mental repetitions can program our thinking patterns so that over time, we begin to think and act differently. For example, evidence suggests that affirmations can help you be better perform at work. According to researchers, spending just a few minutes thinking about your best qualities before a high-pressure meeting, a performance review, for example, can calm your nerves, increase your confidence, and improve your chance of a successful outcome. Self-affirmation may also help to mitigate the effects of stress. In one study, a short affirmation exercise boosted the problem-solving abilities of chronically stressed subjects to the same level as those with low stress. What's more, as if there could be more, affirmations have been used to successfully treat people with low self-esteem, depression, and other mental health conditions. They have been shown to stimulate the areas in our brains that make us more likely to affect positive change in regard to our health. This latter study suggests that a stronger sense of self-worth makes you more likely to improve your own well-being. So, for example, if you're worried that you eat too much and don't get enough exercise, using affirmations to remind yourself of your value can spur you on to change your behavior. And then they throw in this note, and it's literally from the website. Literally right below that statement, there's a note. There is evidence that the higher your self-esteem, the more effective affirmations can be. However, this research also found that if you have low self-esteem, positive affirmations actually make you feel worse, because they set up a conflict between the positive state you desire and the negative feelings you currently experience. If this applies to you, work on boosting your self-esteem before you use affirmation. It gets better. The website even gives you some examples of affirmation. Here's some quotes you're supposed to repeat to yourself. And I hope that we are seeing, again, I'm still quoting from mindful.com. It's really not a spiritual website. Really, from my estimation, has no value except what I'm doing now, I guess, making fun of it. But here's some quotes that you're supposed to be saying to each other, to yourself. Number one, I have plenty of creativity for this project. Just keep saying that to yourself. I have plenty of creativity for this project. My work will be recognized in a positive way by my boss and colleagues. I can do this. Well, I think we probably have all said that at times. I can do this. My team respects and values my opinion. Again, these aren't just blanket. These are things that you're supposed to keep repeating to yourself. My team respects and values my opinions. I am successful. Can you imagine somebody walking around? I am successful. I am successful. I am successful. I am honest in my life and my work. I like completing tasks and projects on time. I am grateful for the job I have. Now, that would be something that wouldn't be a bad thing to remind yourself of, because we are told to be grateful. I enjoy working with my team. Now, what's ironic is these affirmations are things that you currently aren't. You're here, and you want to be here, so you're supposed to be saying things in a repetitious way so that you begin to believe it. So, you're not enjoying working with your team, but you're going to be saying, I enjoy working with my team. I'm bringing a positive attitude to work every day. I like this one. I am excellent at what I do. I am generous. I am happy. I will be a leader in my organization. In summary, again, this is from the website, they express key points. Affirmations are positive statements that will help you to overcome self-sabotaging negative thoughts. To use affirmations, first analyze the thoughts or behaviors that you would like to change in your own life and career. Next, come up with a positive, credible, and achievable affirmation statement that are the opposites of those thoughts. Repeat your affirmations several times a day, especially when you find yourself slipping into negative self-talk or engaging in negative behavior. Remember that affirmations are most effective when you use them alongside other strategies, such as visualization and goal setting. Now, I read all that to point this out. It is a sad state that in a world without Christ, when the world is feeling overwhelmed, when they're feeling hopeless, when they're feeling like life is not going the way that they hope, the best that the world has to offer is find out where you are, find out where you want to be, and then come up with a statement that will help you get there. You don't like your fellow employees? Say over and over and over again to yourself, I enjoy working with my employee. And maybe then you'll be able to do this. But if literally was the note that I already read, if things are too bad, you've actually got to increase your self-worth in your own eyes first, or this is actually going to be bad for you because it'll be a negative effect. You know, the truth in regards to our affirmations is that we need to affirm things that are rooted in Christ, not rooted in us. This is not about, I am excellent at what I do. This is about the very reality of who my God is, who Christ is. And we need to affirm some things in our mind. And I don't think it would be bad for us to remind ourselves over and over and over again, especially when we're going through trials, some things that we need to remind ourselves. And it has nothing to do with I. I am generous. I am happy. I am good at what I do. Those things are all, our focus is just on me. And all I am affirming is myself, which is all that the world can offer. But we need to be affirming in our minds, kind of going back a couple screens, like David pointed out, that I can't, but God can. And I think that'll make a huge difference. And so a couple of very quick points here, a couple of passages we want to go to. First off, beginning in Psalm chapter 9, verse 10. A point that we need to know, a point that we need to repeat, the point that needs to continually go through our minds. I'm going to choose to trust God. I'm going to make a mental decision. I am going to trust. We need to affirm in our minds that God indeed is trustworthy. Now, again, that's an easy statement to say. Well, I know that God is trustworthy. Who among us would ever say that God can't be trusted? But we need to affirm in our minds and repeat it over and over again, even when we're facing circumstances that seem to be beyond our control. God is someone I can trust. Psalm chapter 9, verse 10 says this, "And they that know thy name will put their trust in thee, for thou, Lord, hast not forsaken them that seek him." It doesn't say, as would be easy for us to say, they that know thy name should put their trust in you. It doesn't have an indication of something that we should be working towards. It literally is the wording there in Psalms 9, verse 10. And they that know thy name will put their trust in you. And so we need to affirm in our own minds the very reality of who our God is, that he is a trustworthy God. And I think it's an interesting project, and I don't imagine this is a new thought to any of us, but when we are focused on things that aren't ideal, we'll use that word, because that could be even just those little things to those gigantic things. When we're facing those less than ideal things, instead of focusing on me, I need to focus on my God. And the more that I know of my God, the more that I will trust him. That makes sense. The more that I can rehearse in my mind about who my God is, and his character, and his goodness, and his mercy, even his justice, his judgment. But the more that I can focus on him and less on me, as that verse makes it very clear, they that put their trust in God will, or they that know the name of the Lord will put their trust in him. And to be reminded of that, I need to focus on my God. I need to affirm in my mind my God, because the choice to trust him is going to require me to know him. And that's not just a simple, oh, I know God. But to be rehearsing in our minds all that he is, so that when we do face these circumstances, we have there are no other plan Bs other than to put our trust in God. It's certainly not about hiding in the closet in the fetal position, rocking back and forth, saying, I'm going to trust, I'm going to trust, I'm going to trust. God is good, God is good, God is good. But it's a reminder of the very point of origin of our God, who he is, what he is doing. And as I know him, or I could say because I know him, I will trust in him. Psalm 78, I have those references up there as well. You can turn it if you like, otherwise I'll read it. In these verses, Psalm 78, verses 19 through 22, he says, Yea, they spake against God. They said, Can God furnish a table in the wilderness? Again, the wandering children of Israel trying to figure out, how is God going to handle this? And again, I can't imagine. Can you imagine walking through a desert? I've talked about a desert. I've read about deserts. I've certainly mentioned deserts before in the Word of God, but having gone to California and actually driven through a desert, and driving pretty much all the way across New Mexico desert, so to speak, I marvel at the very thought of what they went through, because they weren't in a car doing, what was the speed limit in New Mexico? I think it was 75 there. They're doing 75 miles an hour, knowing that at least every 40 minutes there'd be some sort of, it might not be the best looking gas station, but there'd be at least something there where if you're hungry, you're thirsty, you didn't have something, you'll be there in like half hour, 45 minutes. They're going into a wilderness that they don't have the corner gas station. They don't have the next exit. They don't have a subway just down the road. You know, sure, it's 52 miles to the next rest stop, but it's coming quickly. They're heading into the desert, and the valid question for them to be asking themselves and their own understanding, how is God going to provide this? How is God going to do this? We're in a desert. There's nothing. There's a lot of us. How is God going to pull this off? Can God furnish a table in the wilderness? Behold, he smote the rock, that the waters gushed out, and the streams overflowed. Next question. Can he give bread also? Can he provide flesh for his people? Therefore the Lord heard this and was wroth. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and the anger also came up against Israel, because they believed not in God and trusted not in his salvation. Hebrews recalls from about a chapter ago in our study of how they missed that rest, how they missed their destination simply because they refused to trust. And I think we need to be reminded that our God doesn't change. Now, obviously, we're not children of Israel. Obviously, we're not walking through the wilderness. Obviously, there are a lot of things that are different about our circumstance than was theirs. But at the same point, we serve the same God. A God that doesn't take lightly when we choose not to trust him. When we don't affirm in our minds who he is, so that we will automatically trust him. And instead, we are affirming in our minds who we are. I am excellent at what I do. I am a good human being. I like working with my fellow employees. All of those things are focused on me. And trying to change me by focusing more on me. When we look at their questions, where were they focusing? How is God going to provide for me? How is God going to do this for me? I am hungry. And God was wroth, it says. He was angered. And he kindled his rage against Jacob and against Israel. And what a reminder that is of us. Again, I'm thankful that we live in the age of grace, but we do have a God that has not changed. A point to note, God is trustworthy. A point to remember, and I don't mean this in a huggy, teary, weepy way, but we are all emotional. And I'm using the word emotional in this regard. Our natural inclination is to respond in emotions. Now, our emotions can have a vast array of different things. We can get angry. We can get discouraged. We can have depressed thoughts. We can do the fight or flight, which I guess isn't technically an emotion. That's more of an adrenaline type of response. But we have a lot of things that are more or less emotional responses. And painting with a broad paintbrush again, it's easy to respond in our emotions instead of who our God is. Now, remember, we are to die to ourselves. We are to offer our bodies as living sacrifices unto our God, and therefore that includes at times. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be emotional people. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have tears. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have. We should have the joy of the Lord, but that emotional response of happiness. I'm not saying that holding the grandchild for the first time and the joy, the happiness that comes from that's a wrong thing. But I think that we need to remember that our natural inclination is to respond in all circumstances in the flesh, in a fleshly way, in an emotional way. And again, I'm not trying to negate emotions. I'm not trying to squash that thinking. But the reminder is that we face trial. If it goes unchecked, if we don't have these affirmations of who our God is in our mind, if we aren't fully focused on him and instead are focused on us, our response will be, instead of they didn't know the name of the Lord, will trust in him. If it's they who face a trial and their focus is not on the name of the Lord, they will trust in themselves and they will have the response accordingly. Hebrews 13:5, probably a great case in point. Now, let your conversation, let your behavior be without covetousness, and be content with such things as ye have, for he has said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Contentment is needed, or the reverse, our lack of contentment is most easily evidenced in those situations that I don't like this. I don't really like what I'm going through, and I'm not content with what I'm facing. I'm not happy with what I'm facing. Now, again, we're talking about sometimes our emotional responses. I am upset by what I am facing. I am saddened by what I am facing. Whatever the answer would be, whatever the that quote-unquote emotional or just flesh-driven response would be. But contentment is the very reality that I am focused on my God. Why? Because here's what we need to affirm in our minds. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Because our God will never leave us. Because our God will never forsake us. Our response should be, I'm content with such things as I have. The other day I left for work. I think it was lunch. Came back from lunch to go back to work. And backing out of the driveway with the old purple van there. And I don't know if the belt was slipping or what it was, but when I was backing out, the power steering stopped. And which is kind of a bad thing when you're backing out of the driveway. My parents' mailbox is right behind us, so they probably think that was a bad thing too. But suddenly then I'm yanking this crazy car, and the belt starts squeaking. I think it's because it's wet and rainy and all that, so the belt starts squeaking, and I'm trying to give it a little more gas, but I don't have a clutch to disengage the transmission. So you get a little more gas. It just means you're going straight backwards faster. But you're hoping that the belt will catch, so that the steering will kick in, so that I can make that turn. And it all worked out. And as I'm driving that, and again, I'm driving this because my car doesn't have doorknobs. So I'm driving that to work, and what do you call that? The headliner is falling down in that van, and so it's like a visor. It's a constant visor. Hangs down to like here, so I have to kind of poke it under my head. Anyway, it's kind of a funny van to drive, and Caitlin's looking all kind of forward to be able to drive that to work every day here soon. But I got to work, and I literally followed one of my coworkers back, and she's got a brand new car, just bought. I thought, wow, that's a nice. I'm driving behind her in this van, and thinking to myself, that's a nice little SUV thing. And I pull in the parking lot after her, and another coworker comes in a brand new car they just bought. And I even stopped them and said, wait, time out. Did I miss the memo? Everybody's supposed to be buying new cars? What's going on here? And it's easy at times, and I'm making this in a funny way. I never at one point thought, boy, I wish I had a different car. But when we're looking at our situation with eyes of me, we can find reasons for discontentment in pretty much everything, right? Pretty much every area of our life. If our focus is on the me, then we could probably find enough reasons to be discontent on most areas of our life. However, if our focus is on our God and the very reality, as He says, He will never leave us. He will never forsake us. And if that is the case, what more do I need? What more is there that I need to get by today? What more is there that is necessary for me to accomplish life? We want to go to Job chapter 23. Kind of some interesting points here. Remind ourselves of our oftentimes emotional response. Job chapter 23, verse 8. He says, behold, I go forward, but He is not there, and backwards, but I cannot perceive Him. Now, if you have another version, we're trying besides the King James, looking to see if they have a note here in Ryries. Nope, I don't see it. The actual word in the Hebrew has that idea of going forward actually was east, and going backwards was west, which, in my opinion, I kind of like going out west. It's kind of cool out west, not necessarily the California part, but the rest of the west would be a cool place to live. But from his vantage point, literally, as he says, I'm going forward, he's moving east. He says, I'm going backwards, literally is the word there that has that idea of being west. And what is stated here in verse 8, but I cannot see Him. I cannot perceive Him. I don't see God forwards or backwards. Have you ever had a such situation in our life and not dealing with the direction east and west? Have you ever had a situation in life where you're committed to, you're affirming in your mind, you're going to do what God wants you, so you move forward for Him, and you're still not seeing Him? So you fall back to our fleshly way of responding, and He's still not there either. Verse 9, on the left hand, again, which literally would have that idea of north, where He doth work, but I cannot behold Him. He hideth Himself on the right hand, and I cannot see Him. Again, as we consider Job's perspective to the north, and we're going to use the directions that seem to be intended here in the Hebrew anyway. The left hand would be the north, and would be the Assyrian Empire, would be the area of Israel from where he is. And certainly, I would imagine that Job was considering God, and considering his work, and he's considering obviously the Assyrian Empire, which was the realm of the known world at that time. Seems like God is doing something there. I look that direction, and I don't see him there either. And I look the other direction, which would then be to the Red Sea, kind of in that time frame, more of a nothingness, an emptiness. And so I'm not finding God there either. I went forward, I went backwards. I went to the left, I went to the right. But I can't perceive him, I can't see him, I can't recognize him. I'm not grasping where he is at all. But verse 10, but he knoweth the way that I take. And when he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold. Great song to sing. Again, and multiple songs have been written about this verse. But what a reminder for our own heart, for our own lives, that there are going to be times when we move forward and God, where are you? I'm looking for you. I want to see you. I want to acknowledge you. And I move forward and you're not there. I'm stepping back. You're not there. I turn to the right. I don't see you there. I turn to the left. I guess I did that backwards to me. Turn to the right. You're not there. I turn to the left and you're not there either. God, where are you? And I would assume that we've all faced circumstances like that. We know that Job did. But how often when we face those kind of circumstances do we have the same kind of, you use the same word again, affirmation of our God, that he would say, I go all the directions and I can't see you, but I know this about you. I know that you know where I am. I know that you know every step that I take. And I know that you are going to work this into me so that this fire, this trial is molding me like fire does to precious metals. That I might come forth as gold. An affirmation, a point to remember is, left to ourselves, I'm going to respond emotionally. That's probably not the right word, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say there. Again, I know some people are more emotional. Some people are a little more that way, and I'm not saying that they're more secular, more carnal. I think that just Lord has made us all differently in that regard. But to remind us, regardless of where our emotions levels go, that when we're facing circumstances, human nature is to respond in the flesh. Human nature is to have that emotional response instead of trusting God. And I need to affirm to myself, number one, that God is trustworthy. Secondly, up to myself, I'm gonna look to the wrong thing. I'm gonna lead myself into saying, I am excellent in everything that I do. Trying to convince myself that I can change my course by stating positive things about myself, as opposed to trying to convince myself that God has said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee, therefore there's nothing more that I need, and I can find contentment regardless of what I'm facing. I don't need the circumstance changed. What I need is my focus changed to my God, so that like Job, I can say, drive it forward. I'm not seeing you all that well. Drive it backwards, not there either, right and left. But I know you know where I am. And I know that this is the refiner's fire working in me, so that I might be more useful to you. Isaiah 45:15. Isaiah said it this way, verily thou art a God that hideth thyself, O God of Israel, the Savior. Imagine the argument given to Isaiah. What did you say? Verily thou art a God that hideth thyself, O God of Israel, thy Savior. And Isaiah responds undoubtedly from this experience, from as he's sharing it here in chapter 45, verse 15. He is a God who hides. Because of that, there's confidence in the enemy that will cause them to be ashamed. Verse 16. There's going to be a punishment that comes. We deserve it. We need to own up to it. But the nation of Israel, verse 17 of Isaiah 45, will be saved. And then verse 18 says this. For thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth and made it. He hath established it. He created it not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord, and there is none else. It's Isaiah 45:18. I am the Lord, and there is none else. We need to affirm our God in our minds. And then lastly, and this one I'm intending on moving, I guess it'll be 2 weeks from now. But there was too much in this point that we'd never finish tonight. It looks like we'll actually get done early tonight. There's not just a point to know God's trustworthy, a point to remind ourselves over and over again. I'm left to my own devices. I'm going to respond incorrectly. Unless my focus is right. But then there's also a point to action. And 1 Peter 5:7 is an amazing verse of action. I believe this is a verse that Brent preached quite a few years ago now. Regarding the casting. And I kind of want to dive into that verse and the surrounding passage in a little greater detail, because I think this is something that, we all, I do, at times face the challenge of learning how to cast our cares upon our God with the reminder that he cares for us. And that's a point, that's a call to action, that's a point to action. We need to affirm in our minds who our God is. We need to affirm in our minds not who we are as far as, I am excellent at all that I do. I am a good person. I love working with my fellow employees. We need to affirm in our minds that left to ourselves, we're going to respond in the wrong way. And I need to remind myself, tomorrow, if I face a trial, if I don't have my focus right, I'll probably respond in the wrong way. I need to affirm and remind myself that that's how I will respond if my focus isn't on my God, and consistently remind myself, I don't need to, I don't want to. There's no benefit for me to respond in that way. Sure, there will still be times that Joe pointed out, I went forward, you're not there, you went back, I'm not right and left. But I know that my God knows the steps that I take. I know that the fire is going to try me, and it's going to mold me, and it will produce the gold within me. And I need to then have a point to action and learning how to cast. Casting those burdens, casting those trials, casting those circumstances upon our God. It's not about, as I began reading, with just simply coming up with a statement, going over it in your mind until you believe it, to change the course of action in your life. Although I do believe that our minds are amazing things. But I think we need to make sure that our focus is in the right area. We need to put our focus on the right object, our God, instead of who we are. And it's not about trying to come up with our best, best characteristic and repeat it to ourselves. But we need to be reminded ourselves of our great God and repeat that to ourselves. And learn how to cast. We have an action to do. Not just a mental aspect, but an action to be done of casting our cares upon him. Choosing to trust God requires an affirmation. The correct kind of affirmation. And I'm actually quite a few minutes early. Would anybody have comments, questions, thoughts? Don't go to the website I was quoting from. No value in that. Along the side note, I did a discussion trying to make sure I'm thinking through what I'm going to say so I don't say something I shouldn't. This last Friday, it's obviously been released that an inmate hung himself in the jail here in town. And obviously those that were directly involved this is rough for them. And not to mention the family that's involved. Obviously this is not ideal for them by any means. But anyway, without trying to get into details I shouldn't be sharing, there's just a lot of things that some people are really having to sort through, and it's really hard for them, as really this all works this way. And certainly not to equate them to the same level as military and PTSD. But there is somewhat of a traumatic event that took place that there's some people that are really struggling with this. And I had a discussion with my boss in that regard about he asked kind of in just a broad paintbrush way, do you think that difficulties, this is insurance related, do you think that difficulties in just grasping something, you think that could be defined as an illness so that work comp will cover this. And my response was that I think today's age, when there's such an awareness, right or wrong, on mental health, I completely agree that this is they have defined it as an illness so that it can be treated, and medical, what do you call that, diagnostic code for insurance as far as treatment goes. And that's it. But if you're asking my opinion, I think that's wrong. What? So I don't think that these types of things are to be left for the medical profession. And it kind of took him off guard because he was thinking medical, he's thinking insurance, he's thinking work comp, he's thinking how can we help these people? Well, what is there to offer as far as insurance goes that we could get some help and encouragement to them? And so he's literally sat down in my office and said, "So explain to me, what are you talking about?" And spent the next about half hour explaining to him that, as a pastor, as a Christian, when our thoughts aren't right, when our thoughts are leading us to this an overwhelmed state, the answer isn't a prescription. The answer isn't something that medicine can provide, although I know that there's a fine line and there are many imbalances that can be corrected medicinally. But ultimately, the answer is Christ. The answer is found in the Word of God. And this is not about a doctor's prescription. This is about a God who knows their steps, and He will never leave them nor forsake them. And it was kind of this conversation that we had in that regard, and he wouldn't admit that I was right in that regard, because that obviously then he removed the insurance benefit. But I think he was beginning to understand what I was trying to say is, there's a lot of things that we face that we need to be reminded of who our God is. And having a focus on Him really does make a difference. It really does change our outlook. It really does change our response and our reactions to whatever it is that we face when we look to Him. Now back to Job. There are still going to be times, forward, backward, right, left. God, where are you? I'm trying to find you. But the answer still is with our God. But I know He knows the way that I take. May we be reminded of that as well. Any thoughts? You guys got some thoughts? Mom would have some thoughts. Your mom would have some thoughts if she were here. So now it's your guys' turn. Let's go through a little prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you again for who you are. I thank you for that you are a God that will never leave us. You are a God that will never forsake us. You are a God that even when we can't see you, you still know every step I take. I pray that we would affirm that in our mind, remind ourselves of that. I pray that even so that we know the responsibility, the action that we have in casting our cares upon you. I pray that we'd understand our call to action. And if you tarry even between now and when we gather again to talk about this topic, I pray that you would direct our thoughts in that regard of what it means for us to cast our cares upon you, how that is accomplished, what it looks like. And I pray that you would help us and assist us as we learn to be content with such things as we have, as we cast those things upon you. And I thank you for what you will do and what you've continued to do, what you did in the life of Job, what you've done in the life of David, so what you've done in our own hearts and lives as we look to you and we give you the glory for it. In Jesus' name, amen. Sunday we'll have some extra things back there, I guess, if you